Talking with Rob Smoke today. He is running for Boulder City Council. He's been around Boulder forever, probably been to more city council meetings than any city council person. Rob, it's kind of a wonder that you have not been elected to city council in the past.
It's horrifically boring. Those meetings, they just kill you with how, data you don't need and little political statements that people feel they have to make over and over again. It's disgusting.
How long have you lived in Boulder, and what's your story?
Well, I was here in '81 to run in the Flagstaff Five and do some other stuff. Went to massage school in '81. Then I left and went back to New York City, and I worked mostly as a massage therapist and had some other jobs. And then I moved here permanently in '86. And I lived in the same apartment for 20 years. And now that apartment rents for, I think, 5 times my monthly
Wow.
income. So,
And you were a writer for the Daily Camera and the Colorado Daily, right?
well, I wrote freelance, but I mean, when I moved here in the late '80s, I wrote Sunday magazine features. Juliet Whitman was my editor, wonderful woman, and did interesting stuff for holidays. We did them for Valentine's Day and other stuff.
And you've run for city council 4 or 5 times. Maybe this will be your year.
No, I
Maybe
ran twice. I ran twice before.
it seems like you're always running. I'm like, oh,
No, the last time I ran was in 2007, and I had I had some things I wanted to get off my chest or whatever. My cat was my campaign manager. I didn't
that's
have
right. I
high
remember.
expectation of winning.
He-
This time around, I think there's some slight, there's some slim chance we could get lucky and win. I don't know. It's kind of hard to discern, but I do know that the views the city council has expressed regarding support for Israel and people who are against Israel or anti-Semitic, there's a heck of a lot of people in Boulder who don't go along with that at
well,
all.
let's talk about that. Why couldn't the city council just say that bombing Palestine is wrong? You talk about that?
Yeah, well, they try to frame everything in terms of this age-old political argument, the Palestinians versus the Jews and so forth. But that to whatever extent that exists, Palestine versus Israel as a ongoing war for centuries or to whatever extent that exists, it doesn't really relate to what's happening
What does the
right.
city
Wait,
council
let me
say?
finish. Let me
What is
finish.
their reason?
Let me finish.
Well,
They're just that it doesn't relate to what's happening right now in Gaza. You don't have to be pro-Israel or pro-Palestine to know that kids dying of starvation and families being bombed in tents and so forth. That kind of thing just has to stop. We have to find a way to make that stop. And the U.S. does have the power to do that, but
But,
you
but
know,
they say that we don't comment on foreign policies, and that's nonsense because when apartheid was going on in South Africa, the city council came right out and condemned it. It's condemned a lot of international issues in the
yeah.
past. Why can't they say something now?
Well, besides that, let's just put it this way. Like Mark Wallach, incumbent candidate, and other incumbent candidates say, "Here, we're here to work. We're here to work for those people of the city of Boulder." Well, to me, I look at it and I say, look, morality comes first. Morality is a a representational way of talking about core values, who people feel that they are.
Rob, they could
Why wouldn't the Boulder City Council be, required or at least expected to represent the core values of people who live here?
they could pass a simple resolution condemning the genocide in Palestine.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they act like we're asking them to start making bombs to send to the
And
Hamas.
meanwhile, they've
Uh,
got all the Palestinian demonstrators in there every single week, disrupting the city council meetings, and they're
well,
going,
hold it a sec. Hold it a second. There's different groups. There's people who do come in very angry and are disruptive, and I don't support them, but I understand what they're feeling, what's going on, and I mean that's to them the best they can do. I mean, I feel like I'm doing the best I can do, and So far, it has done, very little has happened. We gave an 8-1 vote against examining divestment from companies that we know are doing awful things, that have, documented histories of aiding and abetting the mass slaughter, the killing that's been going on in Gaza. And so, they wouldn't even consider, they had a 10-minute discussion. There was a very ultimately, just snap your fingers kind of presentation, and it was over. And Matt, the guy who's running now,
Well,
Matt Benjamin. No, wait, let me finish. Matt Benjamin. He says if we were twiddling our thumbs and had nothing to do, then
mhm.
maybe we could talk about it. I mean, it's so arrogantly dismissive. It's
Right.
just, I think it's kind of disgusting.
Let's move on. You said the city spends $4 million per year having the cops chase homeless people around in circles. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, well, the city has had the same strategy of falling back on the cops, the police force. They're supposed to deal with every homelessness issue. And the primary one they deal with is doing sweeps of people who are camping, either in a park or on a bicycle path or could be somebody's yard. But they're constantly working on that. And what I've been told, which I believe is a fair number, is about $4 million out of their budget every year. And they have countless stories of people who, okay, they've been rousted, they're forced to leave a spot. Well, later in the day, somebody adjacent a homeless space to open space will say, "What are these homeless people here doing here on open space?" And it's the same people. The cops have to go out again. So it's like cheaper, the number of people they're dealing with, cheaper just house all those people who have a tent. But I mean, to say that the city is being sensible or pragmatic in its approach to houselessness, it's just so far off the mark.
Well,
It's so untrue.
the other thing too is the tribe home just closed, and then the youth home closed.
Yeah,
So now all of
together.
these people are pushed out on the streets.
Yeah, which I think it's. I met with the Together people, and they lost a housing facility that I think was on Broadway
Well,
and near
you and I
ICE.
both know that a lot of these guys on the streets, on the camps, are meth addicts, they're alcoholics, they're having big alcohol and drug problems, but they don't, there are no programs to treat the alcoholism and the drug addiction first. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, the city council just they have an item on the ballot this year for more funding for mental
Mental
health.
health, right?
But don't you just have the instant feeling when they say that more funding for mental health that it's not going to make a dent? I mean, isn't that sort of like your automatic response? That would be my automatic response at this point in time, seeing all the programs and all the efforts they've made to really reverse things, never really making a dent or really helping. And I have friends, it's not, I absolutely want to do way more to help alleviate houselessness and homelessness. But, I have friends who are just absolutely scared to death to even go to downtown Boulder,
Oh,
to
yeah.
go down to the post office,
You
because
know, I,
somebody might start screaming at them, which has happened to them too many
I
times.
I see people all the time in meetings, and and I sponsor some of the guys that are homeless at the shelter. But what they do is they move them into housing first, and then they go there and smoke crack, and then invite all of their friends in. And I'm like, well, this isn't you. How? And then the homeless shelter who runs all of these places, they evict them back onto the streets, and I'm like, why don't you treat their drug addiction? Why don't you treat their drug addiction? Why don't they treat their drug addiction, Rob?
Yeah. Well, I think you're asking good questions. I think for starters, the idea that you have in a city like Boulder, which is bordered by open space territories and planning reserve and so forth, areas where people don't go that often, and they could have, quote unquote, Hooverville type camping, serviced camping, which would keep, at least nominally, keep a lot of people from camping on sidewalks in downtown Boulder or sleeping, under bushes and so forth. They can do that in a minute. like with almost no effort. And they said, no, 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 no. The planning reserve land, 300 acres, that's reserved for development. So they don't want anyone who's thinking of development to even get the notion that it might be used in the meantime by people who desperately need it because our economic circumstances.
All right,
And yeah,
Rob Smoke is running for city council. His
oh,
GoFundMe page is down here on the bottom. It seems like Rob's been mayor forever, but never officially. So this might be your chance to vote somebody that actually knows the city and knows the issues.
look, look, can I just ask one question?
Yeah.
Jan, you're out of time or something?
Well, quickly.
Okay. Well, my question is, if you have, we know that Trump has all kinds of policies that could negatively impact the city and already are impacting the city. But let's say you have Tom Cotton and you have Lindsey Graham saying, "Oh, we love you,
Wonderful
Donald."
people.
Why do we also need the Democratic senators and Congress people in the state of Colorado to be walking in lockstep with the whole Palestine situation, the whole situation with Gaza, and keep funding Israeli weapons? Why do we need that? Why? Here's a chance to send them a message. And not only that, send a message to people who've lost family and friends in this kind of, horrible set of circumstances happening in Gaza. I have friends who've lost family in Gaza over the last 2 years.
Really.
Yeah, and so let's send a message to everyone. There is something different. We don't need eight. We don't need a super majority of council to be walking in lockstep with the Trump administration when it comes to Gaza or helping the people of Palestine.
There you go. Rob Smoke's running for city council. Thanks, Rob, for
Thank you. Thanks,
being with
Jan.
us today.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.